lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Unified champion Natasha Jonas could change weights for the next World Championship fight, says Ben Shalom.
It was a surprising read because there's no mention of a Harper rematch, even though right now it would make a lot of sense.
For Jonas, names like Taylor and Jessica McCaskill and Clarissa Shields would be high-profile events for next. Shalom told Sky Sports after the fight that Jonas would consider all these options. She wants a Katie Taylor rematch. She wants Jessica McCaskill for all the welterweight belts. She wants Clarissa Shields at super welter. She feels she's completed everything. A Jonas versus Taylor rematch is the fight that makes the most sense if we're thinking about where it could go. We saw what Shields versus Marshall did. If we take a step back and say, how do we make something really special? I think Jonas is the biggest name now, I would say, from England in women's boxing, and Katie Taylor is a huge star of the sport. Between her and Clarissa for the biggest star.
Those would all be high-profile opponents. Those would all be high-profile fights, but I am a little bit surprised that there's no mention of Terry Harper since Terry holds a title at this weight.
Seems like what they really want is a Katie Taylor rematch. The article continued that for me, the Katie Taylor fight is the fight that's going to get the most attention from the casual fans, from the biggest audiences. I think it's the fight that will get the biggest audience at this time with the support Natasha's had on Sky and obviously where Katie Taylor's at. So hopefully they may be sensible on the other side and we can make that fight. It has to appeal to Katie. We respect Katie Taylor massively. She will have seen Natasha Jonas' ascendancy over the past year, and I think if she wants a legacy fight, if she wants the biggest fight possible, and she wants something to take home that fans can really buy into, then I think Natasha Jonas fight.
I think Natasha Jonas is the fight.
I would not be averse to Natasha Jonas going to fight Katie Taylor at Croke Park.
But no mention of a Terry Harper rematch, no mention of the undisputed junior middleweight title fight.
I can think of a few reasons why there's no mention of a Terry Harper rematch, a Terry Harper undisputed title fight at junior middleweight. One among them is that perhaps the Jonas people have no intention of staying at junior middleweight beyond this year.
They've unified as many titles as they can in the time that they have, but now the situation is becoming dangerous.
With the emergence of Canada's own Mary Spencer, amateur standout Mary Spencer, so close to fighting for an alphabet title, a high-risk, low-reward opponent that towers over both Natasha Jonas and Terry Harper.
Maybe the reason they're not talking about a Terry Harper rematch is because that would require them to stay at junior middleweight a while longer, and that's not their plan.
Maybe that's one reason. Maybe bad blood between the camps is another. Maybe there's a bit of bad blood there between Team Jonas and Team Harper over how the first fight went. A lot of people out there, they felt that Natasha Jonas deserved the decision, but the fight was ruled a draw.
And listen, I myself scored the fight a draw at home, but that doesn't mean there's not bad blood between the two teams. There might be.
So much so that Team Jonas doesn't even want to give Team Harper, the satisfaction. They are in a position of power where they have most of the alphabet titles at junior middleweight, and now Natasha Jonas has options.
Not exclusive to a Harper rematch. Maybe the bad blood between the teams is so bad that Natasha Jonas doesn't even want to give Terry Harper the satisfaction.
I'm just bouncing ideas around. I'm just trying to reconcile how it is that both Natasha and Terry are both champions at the same weight, but there's no mention of a Terry Harper undisputed title fight. Could it be because the Team Jonas people don't plan at staying at junior middleweight, or because they don't want to give Terry the satisfaction?
They feel that they were robbed in the first fight, and they're not going to give Terry the satisfaction in a second.
Talking about a Katie Taylor rematch, Katie Taylor fight. Big fight it would be, but I don't think there's a precedence for a Taylor rematch as much as there's a precedence for a Terry Harper rematch. I mean, the Harper fight was a much closer fight than the Katie Taylor fight. There was no controversy after the Taylor fight, but there was after the Harper fight.
As a consumer, as a boxing fan, I feel like there's actually a need for a Harper rematch, more so than a need for a Taylor fight.
Tasha and Katie don't really have unfinished business, but Tasha and Terry, they do.
Moreover, the way that Matchroom would likely negotiate a fight between Tasha and Katie, a rematch, I should say, they'd probably still negotiate it to where Katie's the A side. They're not going to send Katie to Sky.
I don't think that for a second. I feel like the only way the fight happens is if it's on the DAZN platform, and Katie is still the proverbial A side to Natasha Jonas. Remember, it wouldn't be for Tasha's belts, it would be for Katie's. They're talking about changing weight.
Can Tasha still make 135 pounds? Can she still get down that low?
Do it safely. Match fit. After a year of campaigning as a junior middleweight, can she even get down to 135 pounds safely?
With Terry, she wouldn't have to, if they get a move on this.
They also mentioned a Jessica McCaskill fight, title fight right there at welterweight, a more manageable weight for Tasha at this stage, I think, than trying to cut all the way back down to 135.
For my money, that's actually the more negotiable fight and the more realistic fight for Natasha Jonas than a Taylor rematch.
Jessica's coming off a points decision loss to Chantel Cameron at 140 pounds. She was very recently issued out a show cause letter by the WBO in order to make a decision. Where will she campaign moving forward? 140 or 147, where she's still a champion? And I've no doubts Jessica will choose to continue campaigning as a welterweight because things didn't work out in the Cameron fight.
At junior welterweight.
That leaves the door open for a Jonas fight, and I think the McCaskill people have the wiggle room and autonomy to cross over to Sky from DAZN and do that fight with Natasha.
For Natasha Jonas, the appeal is obvious. It's a chance to fight for alphabet titles at a second weight, become a two-division champion, and for Jessica, it's the chance to get back in the winner's bracket in a high-profile fight.
Make some good money.
Yeah, I thought the Jonas people might be a little bit more receptive to a Harper rematch, but it could be that they don't plan on staying at junior middleweight, thus they don't plan on shooting for undisputed, or it could be that there's just too much bad blood between the teams.
Too many hard feelings there, and they don't want to give the Harper people the satisfaction. We'll talk more about this in the coming days and weeks. In men's heavyweight news, reigning WBC champion Tyson Fury says he needs Anthony Joshua fight, and it would be a travesty if it did not happen.
Wait a minute, this from the guy who said the door is closed for that fight and that ship has sailed?
This from the guy who spent a good amount of time lambasting Anthony Joshua for the missed opportunity he had and how it's not going to happen now and he doesn't expect it to ever happen. Now this.
Yeah, both him and his fat dad doubling down on that when negotiations fell apart between Anthony and Tyson Fury. Here's Tyson Fury once again using Anthony Joshua's name as a promotional vehicle for his fights.
Because this guy can't sell a fight without talking about Anthony. He can't go a day in his life without thinking and talking about that guy. Tyson Fury was quoted as saying, "I think it would be an absolute dying travesty if me and Anthony Joshua didn't fight in this era. The British star is currently preparing for a WBC heavyweight title defense against Derek Chisora on December 3rd at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium."
Has anybody noticed that this fight's tickets aren't selling the same way that the Dillian White's fight's tickets sold earlier this year?
The tickets for this fight aren't selling as fast as the tickets for that fight did, because the tickets for that fight, at least in part, were fueled by Dillian White's fans who wanted to see him get that world title shot, that world title opportunity. I can't stress this enough. Dillian White has been a box office fighter in the United Kingdom for some time now, and he helped to sell that Tyson Fury fight. It wasn't Tyson Fury's fans alone that were interested in that thing.
It was a fresh fight, and a fight that the fight fans were waiting for. It was a fresh fight, unlike this one. This is a repeat, a three-peat.
This is a fight they've already seen 2 times before, except now it's got a price tag on it, a hefty pay-per-view price tag.
I don't think the first 2 fights were pay-per-views.
But this one is. Tyson Fury says, "I don't think I can retire today because I need that Joshua fight. We have been trying to make that fight for years."
No, you haven't.
That's bullshit. When Tyson Fury was on the comeback trail, way back when in 2018, circa 2018, he had the option of going after Anthony Joshua or the option of going after Deontay Wilder, and you saw who he went after.
And after the controversial first fight that was ruled a draw, Tyson Fury was approached by Matchroom, the same as Deontay Wilder. They both chose to have interim fights instead. Wilder chose to box Luis Ortiz for a second time.
Even though he was offered an April 9th date to face Anthony Joshua in Wembley. This was actually before the $100 million offer from DAZN, and Tyson Fury, he was approached as well. He decided to jump into bed with Top Rank, and he had 2 interim fights under the banner.
Ahead of what was the Wilder rematch.
In reference to the Anthony Joshua fight, Tyson Fury says it's the fight that people want to see. It's the fight that I want to see as a boxing fan.
Oh, I thought you said that fight could never happen because Anthony Joshua missed the opportunity.
And now it has to happen. Joshua and Wilder have been slain, and I'm the last one standing. All of a sudden, you've got some new people coming up now. Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois. Usyk's gate crashed the party.
Now there's a load of new blood that wasn't there 5 years ago, and it's like, can you beat this person?
But I think it would be an absolute dying travesty if me and Joshua didn't fight in this era. The real travesty is you talking about a fighter who still is coming off of 2 consecutive losses, 2 back-to-back losses. The real travesty is you're sat here still talking about a Joshua fight more than you're talking about an Alexander Usyk showdown, which your team is supposed to be negotiating behind the scenes. What's the scoop on that? What's the word?
They're supposed to be negotiating that for
Next year?
first or second quarter of next year, aren't they?
You know, it's not that I'm against Anthony Joshua having a showdown, a domestic showdown with his domestic rival, Tyson Fury. Quite the opposite. I want to see the fight, too, under the right circumstances.
But I know a fight that size, worth that amount of money, don't happen if you're negotiating in bad faith. And that's what Tyson Fury was doing. That's what Frank Warren was doing.
Was it really a fight that you were looking for, or an excuse to fight somebody like Derek Chisora? Because it seems to me you should know better, and if you don't, Frank should.
You're talking about this Anthony Joshua guy like he ain't worth no money, like he ain't got corporate sponsorships, like he don't bring a lot to the table. That's how you were talking about this guy and negotiating with this guy. And that fight with him, it don't happen while you're doing that.
I give 2 furry flamingo-shaped fucks what those UK hillbillies you call fans might think about that fighter.
I don't give a fuck what they think about Anthony Joshua. I don't give a fuck what they think about him or who wins that fight. I'm telling you, you don't do a fight with this guy negotiating the way you've been negotiating.
This is not Michael Hunter. This is not Martin Bacoli. This is not your run-of-the-mill challenger, and this is not your run-of-the-mill fight. And if you try to treat it that way, you know what happens?
No, nothing happens. You know what don't happen? The fight don't happen. That's what don't happen.
Won't happen if you're playing these games. Are you trying to do a fight? Are you really trying to do a fight? Or were you just looking for a good story to sell people something they didn't want? That you tried to do the Joshua fight, you tried to do it, but you couldn't. Pin the blame on Anthony Joshua with your unrealistic demands and all your time constraints.
Say that it's his fault the fight didn't happen while you proceed to fight a handpick. You proceed to fight a lighter touch, because at this point, that's what Derek Chisora is.
You say that you've been trying to negotiate this fight with Anthony for years. Well, how's it Anthony's fault that you had unfinished business with Deontay Wilder? That the mediation arbitration, that entire situation, the mediator ruled in Wilder's favor?
That's Anthony's fault?
Or is it your promoters for leading people on and telling everybody that mediation arbitration wouldn't be a problem? It wouldn't get in the way of a Joshua fight.
But it did.
Here we are. The only fight I want to see Tyson Fury in is the Usyk fight.
And when it comes to the Usyk fight, Fury says if Usyk actually wants the fight, we'll do that fight next.
Ah, yes, the ball's in their court cover story. What's going on here? You know, after I beat Dillian White in April, I really meant retirement, and I swear to God, I couldn't have been more sure of something in my life. I had a few months out of the ring. I was writing my 3rd book, and I'm producing a song as well for the World Cup, so I was really busy. But without boxing, I just felt I didn't have any purpose in my life anymore, Fury told BT Sport. For the 4 months I was retired...
Get a load of this. This guy's saying he was really retired for those 4 months, where his fans will tell you he was just joshing, he was playing around. He's telling you he really was retired.
You know what that means. If he really was retired, he essentially relinquished his lineal status as lineal champion, along with the Ring Magazine belt.
Hey, he's the one who was saying he was really retired, not me.
For the 4 months I was retired, I've never felt so back to 2015, 2016, and 2017 ever before. But I was back in that moment, in that time where life was very dull, very dark, and there was no way back for me. I ain't boxing for a belt or back boxing for some money to win another 5 or 25 fights or to unify the division. I am boxing because of this, my mental state. And without it, my mental state is going downhill rapidly, and I don't know any other way of keeping it sane. This is me being brutally honest, speaking from the heart. I do not know how to quit.
Yeah, listen, man, this could just as easily be a guilt trip from a guy who's looking for an angle, because Tyson Fury's an angler, if he's anything.
The fight he's about to have with Derek Chisora, the trilogy, tickets aren't moving the way you might want them to, at the box office, might not yield a very big return. It might not. So you need an angle to try and help sell this thing. Guy battling his demons, his mental health and all of that stuff.
You tried the AJ angle to where we tried to give you the AJ fight and that didn't work out. There are a lot of people that are unconvinced those negotiations were in good faith, that those negotiations were genuine.
I don't think that angle worked out quite as well as Tyson Fury expected, so he needs a new angle. The mental health hero, the mental health warrior, who can't quit.
Oh, you're not quitting? Fight Usyk then.
If Usyk can be made and they actually want the fight, then we'll do that fight next, provided I win and everything goes right. Because I don't look past anything and you can't count your chickens before they're hatched, Fury said. If the Usyk fight happens, more than likely it will be in Saudi Arabia. Get through him and then back to the UK. He keeps saying if the Usyk people want it, but the Usyk people have made it clear that's one of the few fights they want at this point in Alexander's career.
The Usyk people are currently under orders to face their IBF mandatory challenger, Filip Hrgovic, and it's on them to try and circumvent that.
Try and get the IBF to give them an exemption to that mandatory, or try to get Filip Hrgovic to stand down and step aside with the promise that if he holds his horses for a little while longer, he might get to box for more than just Alexander's 3 alphabet titles.
If he lets these two guys fight and a winner emerges, he might get to box the undisputed heavyweight champion.
So I have to ask, why isn't a deal done yet? Because they've been working on this for weeks, and there really should be no friction. There's no matchroom involved per se, not in the Usyk versus Fury negotiations. If the fight were done, at least done on paper, they could file that paperwork and then send it over to the IBF to petition for an exemption to the mandatory.
If the fight were done. The last we heard from the Usyk people is that everything is done on their side and they're waiting on Tyson Fury.
If the fight were done, the IBF's order could perhaps be worked around, but what this communicates to me is that the fight isn't done. Now, why isn't the fight done?
You really can't blame it on Eddie Hearn. He no longer represents Alexander Usyk.
He's not a party to that Fury versus Usyk conversation and those negotiations that have been going on for weeks, so what the hell is going on behind the scenes?